What's going on YouTube? Jamil Damji here, and holy moly, I have a story to share with you guys today. Now, we understand that the economy right now is a little bit, let's just say, not ideal. And when things get hard financially, that's when the real bloodsuckers come out from under their little rocks. And today I've got a story on how a very good friend of mine in the astro flipping community, who has been with me for a couple of years, been rocking and rolling in Chicago, probably one of the nicest guys that I've had the pleasure of getting to know in the community. And this story is all about how he got a wholesale deal and got himself into a situation where a $500,000 fraud took place unchecked by the title company, and he was almost on the hook for the entire thing. And friends, this can happen to you. So you're gonna wanna watch this video right until the end, because there are things that you're gonna notice that you could do differently and ways to protect yourself that you'll learn throughout this call. And so I'm gonna bring on my buddy, my friend from the astro flipping community, Mr. Jeff Mod.
Hey, Jamil, how you doing?
Oh, bro, I'm doing so good. I've got to say, man, I was in shock. I saw you make a post about a couple of weeks ago about a deal that you've been working on. And I know that your intention on making that post was to save other people from potentially finding them in the same situation as you. And you know, the last couple of months, I've made way too many videos on this channel about fraud in wholesale. And here we are, another within the last, this will be the third video. This will be the third installment in fraud practices being rampant in our industry. And then they wonder why they're trying to regulate us, why so many states want to shut wholesaling down, why they want people to be required to have a real estate license, or in fact, not do this at all. And so, Jeff, if you would, I want you to take me back to where things kind of began. First, tell people who you are, how you and I know each other, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the crap.
Oh, man. Thank you, Jamil. An absolute pleasure to be on here. Thank you so much.
Of
my name is Jeffrey Ma. I'm a real estate broker, wholesaler, and now fixing and flipping out here in the Chicagoland market, and joined the astro community back in 2021. And honestly, my life has changed. It really has. It has opened my eyes to the actual possibilities in real estate, and wholesaling has just been the gateway for everything. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that. And, you know, of course, it's done a lot of great things for me, for friends, family, yourself. And so this business model, we owe a lot to it. We owe a lot to the business, and also our duty and responsibility to take care of those who are coming in behind us. And if we don't figure out a way to clean this nastiness up, I'm really scared for the business model in general. I mean, we're seeing so much regulation come down. Jerry Norton, Pace, Brent, and I are trying to create a wholesalers association, but for some reason, as a community, we're having a hard time pulling our heads out of our asses to even get on board with it. I mean, Jerry and Pace and I and Brent are still getting messages from people saying, we don't want to be regulated. You guys are here to make money. It's like, do you not know how much these things cost? Anyhow, I'm not even going to get into that. Yeah. But it's like the wholesaler mentality is anti-regulation, anti-rules, anti-code of ethics, anti-everything. And because of that, shit like this happened. So what happened, bro? What happened?
I believe in what you teach, right? It's about bringing people together, having integrity, squatting up, finding people to do deals with. Like, I'm an active real estate broker, but I also host networking events. So my face and phone number is really out there. And then randomly back in November, you know, I had a guy reach out to me. Hey, Jeffrey, I see you around a lot. Would love to do some deals. Okay, great, you know. And little by little over the months, he sent me one property, another property, this property. Nothing really stuck out to me.
Okay, was he being pushy at all? Was he asking for feedback, or was he just texting you a property and you wouldn't respond and then he wouldn't say anything?
For the most part, I tell him like, no, I don't think I have a buyer for this. Not interested. I think this is way too high. And then, but at the same time, he would always be looking for like a quick close, like something super fast.
Okay.
And I'm just like, no, I can't really do that, until he sent me a 6-unit in Ukrainian village of Chicago, a super desirable area. The ARV for this thing would have been close to $2 million.
Okay.
And I'm like, yes, I have a buyer for that. Went to go walk the property, grab some photos.
Okay, so he sends you a sixplex in the Ukrainian land. Is that what it's called? Ukrainian village?
Village of Chicago.
Ukrainian village, part of Chicago, ultra desirable, high values there. You say this sixplex is worth $2 million. What price did he send it to you at?
$750.
So he sends it to you for like 35% of ARV, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he sends it to you at 35% of ARV, which in Chicago, for really beat up, banged up South Side properties, 35% could make sense. But when we're talking a high-end $2 million area, that was probably like, you were like, whoa, the deal of a lifetime.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so he sends it to you at $750. What other language was used to really get you to make a move and start like figuring out how this was going to work?
He's like, hey, man, I got a great deal. You got to take a look at this. I think you're going to like it. And then he's like, we just got this thing we just picked this up and we claimed it. My boss is handling this. So my initial thought was that the seller was his boss somehow, because I do see some big players where they'll lock up a property, maybe do a quick claim, and then clear out all the liens and hold on the property.
I mean, I've always taught and talked about making sure you go through title when you buy something, also making sure not to do a deal on a quick claim. But it felt to you like this felt okay? Like, so he said that they acquired it by quick claim, or?
Yes, they acquired it by quick claim, but they were going to clear title.
Okay,
right?
So they were going to be able to give you marketable, insurable title is what they're saying.
Correct.
Okay, well, I could have stepped in that pile of doo-doo. All right, so they give you a deal that's really incredible, almost too good to be true. But like if he had sent it to you at like 350, that would have been too good to be true. But like 750 on a 2 million that might need like 300 grand to fix up, that could make sense. That could be very real. Good, but very real. So, okay, so they tell you that they have a quick claim, they're going to clean the liens. They had to have been using like a janky title company, right?
Well, that was the thing. The quick claim was recorded, and then that was the first red flag that I didn't notice was a red flag. Is like when he asked me if I wanted to go under contract instead of, I thought he had it under contract.
Or I thought that they had acquired it already by quick claim.
They already acquired it, and then they were looking to sell it. His boss was looking to sell it, and the reason why they wanted to sell it quickly is because the taxes were sold and the redemption period was a couple months away. So they needed to sell this thing quick before the redemption period was over.
And then did you have to do anything on the redemption there to make sure that it didn't go away? Like, was there anything required of you, or you just had to close it?
We just had to close it before the redemption period was over.
Got it. So that's the reason for the fire drill of timing.
Correct.
And how fast were they looking for this thing to get done?
Less than 30 days.
Okay. Again, not all that for wholesale. That's pretty standard, right? It's not like very, very quick. It's not like I need this done in 48 hours. Like under 30 days feels like, okay, well, we got time for the moving pieces to continue moving and for all the T's to get crossed and the I's to get dotted. Okay. That still seems like pretty normal.
Yes.
So what was the red flag you think you missed?
The next red flag that I missed is when I went to open up title, and I opened up title at Fidelity, they said, hey, can we switch title companies? Which typically, it's not a... It
happens, especially with investors. If they've got a deal with their title company, they want to make sure they're sending files over there and the title company's helping them with meetups or whatever. That happens all over the country. So
yes,
totally normal request.
Totally normal request. And then the next red flag, which was kind of missed, was, he trusted me to the point where he's like, hey, you could just pay me outside of closing. I see you everywhere. You do a lot of business. I want to do business with you. And
he wanted to be paid what? Help me understand. It's his boss. So his boss isn't paying him. He wants you to pay him.
Yeah, he wanted a little split of the assignment fee
that you were going to get.
That I was going to get. And, the guy seemed like he knew his stuff. He knew the properties. He talked the talk, right? And for the most part, it seemed like he walked the walks. I was just like, yeah, I have no problem.
What was this guy's name?
His name was Isaac.
Isaac, did you get a photo of this guy? Do you have FaceTime him? Do you know his nationality, his age, his anything?
From what I know, he is Korean. He's either 29 or 30 years old.
Okay.
I did find someone that went to high school with him, but I don't know what he looks like. Yeah.
All right, Isaac, we're
He
on to
does,
you here.
yeah,
Korean Isaac.
he doesn't have a Facebook from what I can tell. He doesn't have an Instagram from what I tell. And
Well,
not only
there we go. There could have been one thing for us to do. You want to make sure that the person you're dealing with has a vetted, long history on social media. You know, that I want to see your wedding. I want to see on you on birthdays. I want to see you with family members on Christmas. Like, I need to see that you're a real person and not just a social media account where all of the pictures are like March 8th. You ever seen those where you get like added a friend and it's like, every one of this account's pictures were uploaded on the same date. That's a fake account, right? And so like you can tell, but there was no social media account here and he went right to texting with you. Okay, so there's one little thing. We don't know if this guy's a real thing. Had you asked him, do you have a social media? Can I follow you on IG or Facebook? Did you ask him about that? Did he give you an answer?
I didn't ask him because he just seemed like such a normal guy.
And also, you don't want to spook anybody because this deal seems really good and you're thinking you're about to go make a bunch of money.
Yes, 100%.
Man, this is so good and bad. Sorry, it's bad and good. It's like this guy figured out a massive scam and he knew exactly what he's doing. So, all right, he wants you to pay him half of or a split of the assignment fee outside of escrow. You agree to do that. And so now you go under contract with his boss,
who I assumed to be the seller. Yeah, who I thought was his boss was the seller, but his boss wasn't the seller. We later found out his boss is someone else.
Okay, who was the seller?
The seller was supposed to be Promenade Partners LLC.
Okay.
And the managing member is supposed to be Stan Stevenson.
And that was the owner of the property, the owner of record on the property?
The owner of record was Promenade Partners.
Understood. Okay, so that's who ended up being on your contract to sell.
Correct.
So when you looked it up, it felt right. You were like, okay, Promenade Partners are the owner of the property. That's the person's name on my contract. It was weird that he had told you that his boss had already acquired it by quitclaim deed, which doesn't seem like that happened.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But I saw a quitclaim deed recorded.
Oh.
Yeah.
From who to who?
Well, who we believe is the original owner, his name was David. David owned the property, and then there was a quitclaim deed earlier the year before to Promenade Partners.
Promenade Partners had this for how long?
For about a year, maybe a little less than a year.
Wow. Okay, so were they managing the property, this Promenade Partners?
The property needed a full gut rehab, completely vacant, completely uninhabitable.
Okay. And you went to visit it. Who let you in when you went to visit it?
They said, hey, it's like one of my teammates is going to go open the door for you. So they had a master lock there, a key to get into the front door.
Okay. And what was that guy? What did he look like?
Honestly, I can't even remember. Like the guy.
Okay. So just totally like vanilla, nothing to stand out. He obviously is in on, maybe he's in on the scam. Maybe he's not. Maybe they just hired him on TaskRabbit to come and open a door.
Yeah. Super normal guy. He didn't seem like he knew anything about real estate. He just like, I'm just here to open the door.
Okay, so he wasn't trying to sell you anything. So he was definitely somebody they found on Facebook or somebody they found on TaskRabbit to come open the door. They had probably broken into the property, installed a lockbox on the property, had a locksmith come out, because it's an abandoned property, so no one will even know that that happened. So they install a lockbox. They now make it appear to you like they have access. So you're like, yeah, of course you got to have ownership or contractual ownership of this thing because you're letting me in. You've arranged for me to get access. And so that checks the box. Okay, so here we are. Check the box. We're in escrow. You've walked the property. And then what happens?
I was honestly having a hard time finding a serious buyer to put down earnest money. And I think it's not because they weren't serious, it's because they were savvy investors. They saw that the taxes were sold. So I think some of them were waiting to get closer to the redemption period to put a little pressure on me dropping the price or the seller dropping the price. But then during that process, all of a sudden, a second guy enters into the equation, and his name is Dominic.
Okay. And Dominic? Tell me about him.
Dominic apparently is associates or partners with Isaac. And again, they're saying, hey, our boss is wondering what's going on. Is your buyer putting earnest money up? They understood I was wholesaling the property. You know, it wasn't like I was pulling a bait and switch. They knew exactly what was going on. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just having trouble getting a real solid buyer to make a move at the price. And he starts contacting me, and it's just a little bit weird. Out of nowhere, he's calling me from a number which I can tell is a VoIP number because I have ways to figure out if it's a real person. And then he also started messaging me on Facebook as well.
Okay, when he's messaging you on Facebook, from what account is he messaging you?
His Facebook page, I guess, but I never really looked at his profile. But when I did it afterwards, it only had like 10 friends total on his Facebook page. But I knew Dominic was a young kid too. I was just like, okay, maybe he just doesn't do Facebook.
And that's Dominic who's reaching out to you on Facebook asking you what's going on.
What's going on? Hey, when's the earnest money up? Isaac says you're going to have the earnest, that the buyer's walking, that the earnest money is going to show up. Now, I thought Isaac was also on my side a little bit. I thought Isaac was essentially giving me a little bit more time to get a solid buyer in there. But the two seemed like they were kind of butting heads, but then also later finding out that, from what I believe is that they were all in cahoots in the very beginning.
Did Dominic have a different voice? Did you talk to Dominic on the phone?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so these are definitely two different people. It's not one person with 5 different personalities.
Correct.
So they got another guy now. They got a guy opening the door. They've got Isaac. They've got Dominic.
Yeah.
And whoever they say their boss is.
Boss is a Mr. Burnett.
Okay. And did you have a chance to talk to Mr. Burnett?
I talked to Mr. Burnett, so I cannot confirm or deny if a Mr. Burnett actually exists. But what I did learn from title is that Mr. Burnett may have been involved in mortgage fraud.
So he's a real person?
I think he's a real person, and I think that he may be the mastermind behind everything.
Oh, this is good. All right, Mr. Burnett. Oh, we're on to you a little bit here. Okay, so I have questions on how title starts telling you that they think these people are in mortgage fraud, but we're not there yet. Okay, so they're putting pressure on you to get EMD in. Mm-hmm. What happens?
We finally get a solid buyer in there. I was working with a couple other wholesalers. Someone brought this other end buyer to me. Coincidentally, I knew the end buyer, but sometimes you just kind of forget your relationships of who's in your Rolodex. And I actually
happens to me all the time.
And I have a good relationship with this buyer. So at the very end, I had to tell him what happened. I'm like, oh man, this is going to ruin the relationship. And he also has a podcast here in Chicago. He's already at like 350 episodes. I just did an episode with him. And the day he released my episode is the day I found out about the fraud.
What's his name?
His name is Tom. Tom is a phenomenal person.
What's his last name?
Tom Shawcross. Him and his partner, Mark Ainley, have a podcast called the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast.
All right, guys, make sure you check out the Straight Up Chicago Podcast. These guys obviously are movers and shakers in the Chicagoland area. I'll reach out to them for comment later on and see how they're feeling about it all. But, okay, so you've got a good relationship with this guy. You're like, man, I'm really happy to be doing a podcast with this movers and shakers. Yeah. Got a deal in the bag. So
it was my first real deal with him as well.
Okay, so he puts up the EMD.
Yeah.
And it goes to who? Where does the EMD go to? Which title company?
Fidelity. It goes to Fidelity.
So you guys are with Fidelity Title now. That's the biggest title company in the United States is handling the sale of this. I mean, at that point, I would feel like everything must be on the up and up because Fidelity doesn't drop the ball. They're going to investigate who their seller is. They're going to make sure that they've got ID checked, that they've done all of the things. So it sounds like that may not have happened. Like what transpires? Like is Fidelity at all alerted or feeling weird about the deal?
Well, in full transparency, there's still investigation. So they haven't 100% concluded that it's a scam, but they also haven't said it's not. So title cleared and we closed. Funds were wired. Everyone got paid. Everything seemed perfectly fine. And then a week later, I get a call.
Okay, hold on a second. So your buyer wires cash or hard money and into the title company. Title company clears the title. They insure the title. They give your buyer title insurance, which thank God they did. And that it's Fidelity, a big company, because they're going to be able to back their title insurance up. Okay, so your buyer wires the money. It clears to close. It closes. You give your buyer keys or your buyer goes and gets keys to the property?
Yeah, he just gets the keys from the lockbox.
Everybody gets paid. How much money did you make on the assignment on that one?
$25,000.
You made $25K.
$25K, and then I promised to give a portion of that to Isaac, who brought me the deal.
What were you going to pay Isaac?
A third. And then
you were giving Isaac a third of that. Yep.
The other wholesaler, her name's Lisa, wonderful, wonderful person. She had brought Tom back to me, so I gave her a third as well.
Okay, so you're splitting a third on $25K, which is very fair. A very fair assignment fee for Tom, honestly, with 3 wholesalers in there, and you were really kind. You didn't overcharge. You had a lot of spread there. You could have charged a $100K assignment fee, but you kept it small, and I'm sure Tom appreciated that. So you get the 25 grand. It's real money. It gets deposited into your bank account, right? By wire, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens?
A week later, I get a call
Do you
from,
pay Isaac from the 25 grand?
yeah, I wired Isaac his 8K and some change.
To a bank account that they can, I'm sure, are investigating now because he's somehow involved.
I hope so.
Have you been in touch with law enforcement?
I don't even know how to explain this to the law enforcement. Like, again, it hasn't been proven. I called Chase, tried to submit a claim for fraud, and then also tried to reverse the wire as well, put a request to reverse the wire because Fidelity also reversed the whole transaction, or that's what they're trying to do.
Let's go to the week later. Okay.
Yeah.
Everything closes a week later. You get a call from who?
I get a call from the title officer handling my file. I built a wonderful relationship with her. She's just like, hey, BMO Harris just flagged the transaction fraud. I'm like, which transaction? What are we talking about? He's like, the one on Iowa. The seller created a brand new bank account and then tried to withdraw funds. But apparently there was a mismatch in identification. So they froze the account, flagged it as fraud, and they also notified Chase as well. And then I got a phone call from the title officer being like, hey, who was part of the transaction? I was just like, oh, it was like me and this Isaac and a Dominic. And she's like, oh, if you would have told me from the beginning, if I would have known, I would have never done this deal.
What did she want you to tell her?
So like, if she's like, you didn't sign a JV agreement, you paid them outside of closing. I'm like, yeah, I did. She's just like, oh, it's like, you're going to be on the hook for the whole assignment. But if she would have known Isaac and Dominic were part of that transaction, she would have never opened title. She would have told me to walk away immediately.
Why would she have told you to walk away if she'd known Isaac and Dominic were in the transaction? How the hell does she know who Isaac and Dominic are?
Because they've already been blacklisted by Fidelity.
Oh, snap. And they know these names, Isaac and Dominic?
Yeah, they know who they are. Because it's not
so are those real people then? Isaac and Dominic, they're real names?
As far as we know, those are their real names.
Do you know the name on the account that you wired the 8 grand and change to?
Yeah.
Can you tell me right now?
Circuit Vendors, LLC.
Circuit Vendors, LLC, I don't know if you're involved in this fraud or not, but you might be. And if you are, okay, who else?
Well, the managing members are Isaac and Dominic.
Oh, do you know their last names?
Yeah, Isaac Kim and a Dominic Zuniga. I have an address for Isaac, but I'm not going to go over there.
We're not going to do that on this. But
I'm not going to do that. But again,
I
can't prove everything.
Yeah.
I don't have substantial proof because their names aren't on any of the paperwork, which again was my mistake for not having a JV agreement, or so I think so. Isaac has completely ghosted me. Dominic, if you saw the chain of messages from Dominic, you could tell it's just pure panic mode of like, it's like, Isaac has your money, go after Isaac. He's like, and then he's saying, go after the seller, put a lien on the seller's property. And then he's asking me for the seller's contact information, which I thought you guys had. It's just pure panic mode.
When did their LLC form? Isaac and Dominic.
I think
Circuit Breaker LLC or whatever.
I believe just last year. It's a fresh LLC.
Fresh LLC.
Yeah, but they've been already flagged by Fidelity because there was another transaction where a seller came in and didn't even know how to write their name. They misspelled their name on the documents and then asked the guy to come back in again, and the guy didn't come back in. And then again, Isaac and Dominic's name got dropped.
And do you know if they're only working in Chicago or are these SOBs all over the country?
I'm pretty sure they're trying to do wherever they can.
All right, guys, listen, if you're watching this video, you made it to this point right now, it is your obligation to share this video with every wholesaler friend you have. We've got to out this Isaac. We've got to out this Dominic. We've got to out this Mr. Burnett. We've got to out all of these people because this is absolute bull. They've stolen a property from somebody. They've tried to run away with $500,000 worth of Tom's money. Did Tom get his $500,000 back?
Right now, they were able to freeze the BMO Harris account. They were able to get some money out, but for the most part, majority of the money is just sitting in escrow, and title is trying to figure out how to move forward because obviously title doesn't want to pay out the whole claim. They want to either reverse the whole transaction as if it didn't happen, or right now, from what I'm hearing, is that they're also trying to see if Tom has the ability to redeem the taxes so they can just kind of move forward, which I don't think it's possible. But I've been speaking to Fidelity's attorneys. I've been speaking to Tom, we're just trying to find the best and easiest solution
How
moving
much are the
forward.
taxes behind, or how much needs to be redeemed on the taxes
180,000.
in addition to what he's already paid?
So no, the purchase price of which actually ended up being 760. The end purchase price was 760. I had it originally locked up at 750, but the seller agreed to a price modification to 735. So there was the 25K difference. Out of that $735,000, 180,000 was to go to redeem the taxes, and then the rest would go to the fake seller.
So wasn't Fidelity supposed to redeem the taxes with that money?
Correct.
And
So
they didn't do that?
Well, they did, but they reversed the transaction. So now the funds are just sitting in escrow and they're trying to figure out the next steps.
And what's your liability in this?
Currently, my liability is I have to give back all the $25,000, but I'm obviously not going to get the $8,000 and change back from Isaac and Dominic. And then the other wholesaler already spent the money. So she says she's going to try and pay me that money when she can. But currently, I am personally responsible for the whole 25,000.
Of which you only got 8.
Of which I only got 8.
So 16 grand's coming out of your pocket to cover the Shenanigan brothers and the girl who you know, who's been honest with you, who's probably needed this deal to close. And so as soon as she got that 8 grand, it went right out to paying her bills.
Yeah.
Or a Louis bag, like well, wholesalers do one of two things, right?
100%.
Jeff, man, first, I'm really sorry, dude. I'm really sorry that this happened to you. This is terrible. I'm glad you're not on the hook for more than what it is. I'm really grateful that you've taken the time out of your life to come onto this podcast with me and talk about this, because it's really important that we open people's eyes to fraud. I'm happy that you chose, or that Fidelity Title was the title company of question here, because they're big, they're capitalized. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think we're going to need to do a second part here so that you can tell us how it all shook out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really hoping Fidelity does what they're supposed to do here and makes it right for everybody. I do think that your mistake in paying people outside of escrow, which I've said it I don't know how many times I've said it in the community, never do that. As a broker, it too, like you gotta pay on the HUD, like keep it all on the HUD so that we know what it all is. But at the same time, sometimes things happen. And have I ever done a deal where I had to pay somebody outside of escrow? Absolutely. And could that have come back to bite me in the ass? You betcha. And would then there be a Jamil Damji telling me, you should have? Yeah, absolutely, right? So here's the truth of it. Like, you got caught slipping a little bit on that, and that caused you a problem, right? And so, like, first lesson we know. Let's go through the lessons here. First thing, if you get a cold text message from somebody you don't know, and they're like, I've seen you around, here's a deal, and that deal seems really good, like, let's first verify who the people are, right? Let's look for a long-standing social media accounts. Let's get on a FaceTime. Let's really, really, really make sure we're dealing with legitimate parties here. But don't think a history of text messages is evidence that people are legitimate. These guys have been texting Jeff since November, and then this deal just happens. And so, like, they were playing the long con with you. This has been a long con. They've been sending you deals, trying to do business with you, trying to catch you slipping for quite some time, until they send you something that you bite on. You take the bait, right? Now, the next lesson we have is that when there's inconsistencies in the story, start raising red flags, because they had already said that their boss had acquired it by quitclaim, which you saw was true. But then there were inconsistencies on, like, who owned it, how long they owned it for, and all of this thing. And now all of a sudden you're doing a deal with not their boss, but with somebody else. So that becomes problematic as well. And so you've got to start to take a look at, okay, they told me this, but this is what I'm seeing. There's an inconsistency here, and I need to be able to understand why. Mm-hmm. So I think the second lesson here is, let's really figure out how to draw the connections, right? When there's an inconsistency, there's smoke. And where there's smoke, there could be fire, right? I think the third lesson was something that you did really well, which was you stuck to your guns and you didn't use the janky title company they wanted to use. You said, let's use Fidelity Title. Fidelity does their thing. And I think the fourth lesson is when we're going to make or pay people splits on assignments, we want to make sure that we have that documented up. And so a JV agreement would have been very, very helpful for you, because then you wouldn't have been on the hook for the 8K to the girl and the 8K to Isaac. You would have been able to get that reimbursed by Fidelity Title, most likely, because they would have dispersed that money. So then they would be responsible for collecting it. You dispersed the money, so now you're responsible for collecting it, which is what essentially Fidelity is telling you your obligation and responsibility is here, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So a JV agreement could have saved you in this, but it could also hang you out to dry, because if you did a JV with fraudsters, you would now be in cahoots with those fraudsters, and maybe you'd be on the hook for the entire 500 grand or 750 grand if you were in a JV with these guys. So maybe the way that you did this was the way that got you off with the slightest injury possible.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jamil.
I want you to ask that escrow officer, like, you know, she chastised you for not having had a JV agreement, but you should say, well, if I had had a JV agreement, would Fidelity be trying to pin the entire thing on me because I'm the only person that's at the table right now? And if I had had a JV agreement with the fraudsters, doesn't that make me a fraudster?
Yeah.
Because now I'm in a joint venture with crooks.
Oh, yeah.
So then you want to make sure, I think the real lesson is here is that don't just go signing willy-nilly JVs with people, because you could put yourself in a situation where you're in business with the devil.
Yeah.
This was epic and tragic and all the things. And I'm just grateful that you're willing to share this. You know, I went through a thing where I was taken for $1 million a couple of years ago, and getting scammed is embarrassing. It was embarrassing for me because I was obviously stupid enough to fall for it. I still feel a level of remorse and guilt and shame over it because I know better. I'm a smarter man than that, you know, but I let my greed get the best of me. And my greed is what blinded me to all of the red flags that were obviously in front of me that I chose to ignore. And so that's where I learned my lesson, right? That greed is blinding. It's a blinding emotion because it will have you ignoring things that are really important because it wants what it wants, which is that end payday. But it will do anything it can to get that. And it will literally hang you out to dry for a short-term gain, which will ultimately be your long-term downfall, right? And so for me, that $1 million, I was able to make it back. But some people, they lose $1 million, their entire life is finished. For you, you're able to take care of the $16,000 you're out that you paid to these wholesalers, one of whom is a fraudster, but you can still take that loss. I know you, and you've got restaurants, you've got a brokerage, you've got a lot of things going on in your life. You're not a slouch. You make money. And so you'll be able to recover from a $16,000 loss. But at the end of the day, this is a really, really big lesson for wholesalers that are getting started because, you know, you could be getting a text message from somebody and that text message could lead you down this place here where you ultimately find yourself in really, really hot water. Definitely. And so there's a lot of lessons for you guys to learn here. Absolutely. And you should be very, 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 very grateful to Jeff for having had the courage to share his experience here so that none of us find ourselves in the same boat. Anything else you want to share with the audience right now while you got them?
Yeah, guys, if there's one more thing you could do to protect yourself is sometimes these sellers, what they're saying is that they're having them do a mobile notary by meeting them at a random location with typically a fake ID. So instead of a mobile notary, have them do a RON notary, which is remote online notarization. The reason why the RON is a little bit more secure because it's going to ask credit questions. It's going to ask, where did you live, right? Did you pull a car loan? Did you own this car, right? And typically a fraudster wouldn't have that kind of personal information. So one thing is to do a RON notary, and then you could have the title company do it as well.
There you have it. Jeff, I appreciate you. I love you, bro. Sorry this happened. Thank you for sharing. Guys, leave Jeff a comment in the comment section below. Thank him for sharing this. And as you heard earlier, share this with all of your wholesaler friends. Don't let yourself, don't let your teammates, don't let your friends, don't let this business fall victim to pieces of crap like Isaac, Dominic, Mr. Burnett, and the rest of these shenanigan donkey dicks out there who are literally trying to destroy what has been the greatest business model of all time.
100%.
All right, folks. Until the next one, I'm Jamil Damji. That's Jeffrey Ma. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.